The market is crashing. Screens bleed red. Millions of people are staring at their phones and quietly making the single worst financial decision of their lives. But somewhere, in a quiet room, one man is calm. He isn't panicking. He's buying. And by the time the dust settles, the fortune will have moved from the frightened into his hands. We're told wealth comes from working harder, hustling longer, wanting it more. But the largest fortunes in history were not built by the most frantic people. They were built by the calmest. And that is not a coincidence. It is a law as reliable as gravity. 2,000 years ago, philosophers in Rome discovered something that today's richest investors still live by. A way of thinking that turns fear into an advantage. They didn't call it investing. They called it Stoicism. And once you see how it works, you will never look at money the same way again. Here is a truth the financial world rarely says out loud. Most people don't lose money because they picked the wrong asset. They lose it because they panicked at the bottom and got greedy at the top. The enemy was never the market. The enemy was their own nervous system. And that is exactly the enemy the Stoics spent their lives learning to master. Consider the man who wrote about calm while ruling the largest empire on earth. Marcus Aurelius controlled unimaginable wealth and power. Yet each morning he reminded himself that none of it truly belonged to him. It was all on loan. It could all vanish. Strangely, holding wealth loosely is what let him hold it without fear. He owned it. It did not own him. So here is the question that separates those who build lasting wealth from those who chase it forever. Can you stay calm when everyone around you is losing their mind? Because in every crash, every mania, every panic, money doesn't disappear. It simply moves from the anxious to the composed. Let me show you the mechanics of how. The first Stoic principle is the foundation of all financial calm. Epictetus, born a slave, taught it plainly. Some things are in our control, and some are not. You cannot control the market. You cannot control interest rates, or crashes, or the panic of the crowd. But you control your savings rate, your patience, your reaction. Focus only there, and half your financial anxiety simply dissolves. Now watch how this becomes an actual advantage. When markets crash, assets go on sale. The calm investor sees a discount. The panicked investor sees a catastrophe and sells at the exact worst moment. So the panicked person hands their shares at rock-bottom prices straight to the person who kept their composure. Calm is not a soft virtue here. It is a wealth transfer mechanism, and you get to choose which side you're on. The Stoics had a strange practice they called the premeditation of adversity. Each day, they imagined losing what they had. It sounds gloomy. It is actually armor. Seneca, one of the richest men in Rome, would live occasionally as if poor, eating plain food, wearing rough clothes, and then ask himself, "Is this the condition I so feared?" Once you have already faced the loss in your mind, it can no longer ambush you in reality. But Seneca knew something that made him uneasy about his own fortune. He saw a paradox that most wealthy people never notice. The more you fear losing your money, the more that money quietly owns you. The richer you look, the poorer you may actually be. And what he said about that trap still cuts to the bone today. Seneca wrote that it is not the man who has too little who is poor, but the man who always craves more. By that measure, a billionaire ruled by wanting is poorer than a calm person who feels they have enough. This reframes the entire game. Wealth is not just the money in your account. It is the gap between what you have and what you feel you need. Close that gap from both ends, and you become almost impossible to shake. The Stoics never said money was evil. That is a modern misreading. Seneca was extraordinarily rich and defended it. His point was simpler. Wealth is a fine servant, and a terrible master. Use it as a tool, and it builds your freedom. Let it use you, and it becomes another kind of chain. The question is never how much you have. It is who is holding the leash. There is one more Stoic power that quietly builds fortunes: patience. The Stoics saw time not as an enemy, but as an ally you must simply not interrupt. Wealth compounds the same way. The great mistake is not being too slow. It is being too restless, pulling the seed out of the ground to check if it's growing. The calm investor plants, and then has the rarest strength of all, the strength to leave it alone. And when loss does come, because sometimes it will, the Stoics had a final move. They called it a more fatty, a love of one's fate. Instead of raging at a downturn, they asked, "What can this teach me? How can I use even this?" A recession becomes a lesson in resilience. A loss becomes tuition. A crash becomes the greatest buying window of a decade. The obstacle, they believed, does not block the path. The obstacle becomes the path. Here is the uncomfortable part. None of this is complicated. All of it is hard. Control what you can. Rehearse the loss. Want less. Wait longer. Love your fate. These are not tricks. They are training. The calm investor isn't born fearless. They simply practiced calm on 1,000 small days long before the storm arrived. And here is what this means for you. This morning, whatever is in your account right now, you do not need more income to begin. You need a steadier mind. Because a calm person on an average salary will almost always end up wealthier than an anxious one who earns far more and panics it all away. So let's turn philosophy into something you can actually do. First, draw the line of control. Take a sheet of paper. On one side, write everything about your money you cannot control. Markets, headlines, the economy. On the other, write what you can. How much you save, how long you wait, how you respond. Then give your energy only to the second column. That single page is more powerful than most financial advice you will ever read. Second, rehearse the loss gently. Ask yourself calmly, if my portfolio fell by half tomorrow, would I still be okay? What would I actually do? Have the plan ready now, in the quiet, not in the panic. And third, define your enough. Write the number and the life that would genuinely satisfy you. Because a person who knows they're enough can never be manipulated by the endless promise of more. Do only these 3 things this week, and something quiet begins to shift. Money stops feeling like a threat and starts feeling like a tool in a steady hand. You stop reacting and start deciding. And over the years, that composure compounds, just like the money does. So remember 3 things. 1. Control only what is yours to control and release the rest. 2. Define your enough so nothing can rent your peace. 3. Stay calm when others panic, because that is precisely when fortunes change hands. Wealth, in the end, is not the loudest pursuit. It is the quietest discipline. The market will crash again. The panic will return. The screens will bleed red. And in that moment, most people will lose their heads, while a quiet few keep theirs and quietly grow richer. Which one you become is decided long before the storm. If this way of thinking speaks to you, subscribe and stay a while. We sit here often, with the calm and the timeless. The fortune was never in the noise. It was always in the stillness.